Hi, all. This is Dr. Sage Breslin, and this is Wisdom Wednesdays, my special series on my journey with cancer, video number 24, I think. And while I said last week that I thought this would be the last time I'd be shooting this video in my office for a while, uh, gosh, this process it requires a lot, I think, to transition a practice for, 3 months for medical leave. I probably underestimated the amount of time that it would take to get all the paperwork done and all that good stuff. So I am using my couple last free days to pop into the office and get things done, making sure that there's continuity of care for all of my clients and that all the bills are paid and all that good stuff. So here we are with a slightly different look. I am Yeah, I think it's been a whirlwind, honestly, after finishing up with clients last week. Here we are only into Wednesday, and I still feel like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get it all done? But I will. I'll just get done what I can. And I guess that's how we all are, right? You can't do more than you can, right? And eventually it all gets taken care of. So I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to follow my energy, do as much as I can, and then I will just hand it all off. So I've been thinking about so many different things, just take a bone marrow transplant to get your mind like swirling around on every issue under the sun. Anything that's below the surface gets percolated up. And many of you know what that's like. I think that lots of people use the word triggered now. So I've definitely been triggered in many ways so that I could look at things that need to kind of be cleaned up. And one of the things that was tough yesterday was just a tough day. I had to go meet with my team at the oncologist's office and, had to sign off all the contracts for this transplant. And they call it a teaching day. So you go and they describe everything in detail for every step of the way. And for me, one of the ways I have been able to stay positive and keep working and do the things that were important to me here until this week has been to, acknowledge where I am in the process and then sort of let it sit off to the side, not directly in front of me, because if you put something directly in front of you, right, you have to go around it. You can't go through it. If you put your past directly in front of you, you're constantly trying to find ways around it. If you're able to place the past behind you, it's much easier to move forward, right? So that's a lot of what we do as psychologists and clinicians and coaches is teach you, how do you put it here or off to the side so you can gently watch it. Trauma survivors really prefer gently placing it to the side so they can keep an eye on it, but so that they can move forward. And it's really different when you're in the teaching day where you are very much exposed to every single detail of the process, including the risks, the benefits, everything. And I realized that by the time I got out of the office, I was just not feeling as good as when I walked in because I was filled up with like the reality and the imminence of everything that's about to happen. And it's not like I'm in denial, right? I go visit that from time to time. Often I visit that when I really would love to be sleeping, but that's apparently when my mind quiets down and says, oh, let's think about that. So, so I just noticed, that I was kind of filled up with that and filled up with more anxiety than usual. And by the end of the day, I just hit this pocket where I leaned into, I want my mommy. And I didn't want just anyone's mommy. I wanted the mother that died last month. And there's something so incredibly special about my mom. And, my mom was not without flaws. We had a difficult time when I was growing up, But as an adult, we created a new relationship based on kind of different values and more of a companionship. And my mom had this incredibly great knack of, you could call her, until this last year, that was a little bit more difficult, but honestly, until the last 3 months. You could call her kind of any time, mostly, right? Somewhere between like 9 in the morning and 9 at night. And if I called her and I had an issue, I could vent, I could rail, I could carry on, I could cry. And my mom had this incredible knack for holding space. And we use that term, and oftentimes we don't. It's kind of woo-woo, and we don't really know what it means. For my mom, it meant that she could hear whatever I had to say, and she could not judge it. And the interesting part about this is I could carry on about, a colleague or my landlord or my ex-husband or whatever it was, right? I could carry on and deal the death blows about that person. And my mom would say things like, "Oh my God, that must be so difficult for you. It must be so challenging to be a mother of 5 and have to deal with this stuff." And it was so rare, as if I could almost say never, so rare that she would ever say something like, "Oh, that bastard," or "Oh my God, I can't believe that person." And I think one of the reasons she did that is she knew that, like in relationships, things come up, you get angry, you say things, and then weeks later, when you've worked through it all, you're back to, I know this person's flawed, but we still care about one another. And, I'm not without flaws myself. And she would then follow up with, of course, we're all that way. And it's amazing to me how then you wouldn't hide, right? You wouldn't hide that you'd kind of gone back or that you really did like this person. It was just this incredible grace that she had. And this diplomacy is the word I would use with her. So yesterday, at the end of the day, more than anything, that's what I wanted. I wanted just that unconditional love from her. And it was really hard, not to have her there to call and to talk through things with. Just recognizing, I could do that in prayer, but that I couldn't call her and receive that kind of support. And I think it's difficult for a lot of us that we don't have that. We have friends, we have acquaintances, we have colleagues, and even family sometimes, right? But we don't have the amount of invested time and energy developing those very, very deep relationships where nobody has to sort of rock their own agenda, right? And so as I was considering what I wanted to share today in terms of this Wisdom Wednesday, is really looking at, responses and reactions, and mainly reactions to people that are reflective of our own junk below the surface. So I know that, from last night and through this morning and not doing a lot of sleeping last night, I realized that how much I really wanted that sort of very unconditional support. I get very loving, well-intentioned messages from people like, "Oh, you can't do chemo, you really need to do this instead." And I always accept them for what they are, but every once in a while I'll find myself reacting. And the reaction is typically just a reflection of me and my stuff. It's not about the person, like they're just trying to be kind. And, I've been doing a lot of looking at below the surface to see like what is guiding and informing my reaction, what is propelling it. And I'm going to encourage all of you to take a look, when you are wanting support, when you're needing support, what propels your reaction. And when people aren't able to give you the kind of support that you need, are you able to ask for that? Are you able to look at yourself and say, how much of this is something that I can give to myself? How much is something that I literally need from somebody else? If you need a hug, it's really just hard to get the same thing from this than from another human, right? But can you ask? And if you can't ask, why? What is below the surface that doesn't allow you to ask in the way that you need to. And by the way, if you're responding to somebody else, is there anything else that gets in the way of that response? Because that's trickier, right? If you're a leader and one of your team members is really struggling and comes to you or comes to your office and, is tearful and uncomfortable and really needing support, what gets in the way of your extending a hug or even a verbal hug? And does it fit the bill, or do you keep yourself sort of in a box because of how you think you need to show up? And then does it fall short? And what falls short, if it falls short, like what happens with that person? So I'm really going to encourage you to take a look at that and, to maybe take a look at my own example here today and really, discover, what gets in the way perhaps of your showing up as a person or as a leader, as a loved one, for the kind of support either that you need or that others around you need. So this is Wisdom Wednesdays. I am Dr. Sage Breslin. I want to thank you so much for being part of my team. I have just incredible gratitude during this process and always, honestly. And I look forward to shooting the next video. Actually, it'll be the day that I admit to the hospital, I think. So it might be a video on the run. We'll see. All right. Have a great day or evening where you are.